I think when it comes to history, sometimes those individual stories actually, because it's easier to kind of resonate. I don't know. This is just me personally, but like when you hear a story about someone they're telling about whoever in history, you kind of can like stop and think, okay, like what would I do if I was in his position, or what would. Whereas like what you're talking about with the boring history teachers, sometimes they just say, "Oh yeah, and then this happened,
And then this happened and that
and then this
happened.
happened," and
And yeah, and you got to find those kernels in there, I think, and they're always there. One of the reasons I loved when Clint Eastwood came out with he did Flags of Our Fathers, and then he did the bookend with the Letters of Iwo Jima, which I thought Letters was a far better movie.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Intelligent Conversations podcast. Today, I have the honor to welcome back Bill Cushing. Bill is a poet and author. Today, we talked about the importance of history, writing, and learned a bit about Bill's family history. I, for one, was blown away by the story of William Cushing, who Bill is named after. I don't want to spoil too much of it, but without further ado, let's welcome back Bill Cushing to the show. What really blew me away was Will's story. That was what?
Well, you know how they always say that, if you could meet anybody, past or present, fiction, nonfiction, oh, definitely be him. I would love to hear the stories that nobody knows about.
Yeah, it.
Because
Well,
any person is like an iceberg. You're only seeing about 10% of what's going on.
well, the crazy part to me was the like how he sent a let like he was going to kidnap a general, right?
Oh, yeah, when you left the
And then he
car.
sent a left a note
Because
card
remember
there.
back then, calling cards was a regular thing. You carried them around with you. So you just left like what we call a business card. That was pretty standard practice back then.
What did it say on it again? Just refresh my
Just
memory.
came by, you weren't here. Maybe next time, something like that.
Oh,
And like I say, even the Confederates were like, "This guy's cool."
yeah, no. Well, even his idea to how he came up with like sinking that ship,
Yeah,
because I mean the ironclad ships were pretty new at the time,
yeah.
and like he just decided. Did he invent then the?
Well, no, he didn't design it, but he came up with the ideas. Look, I want a way of blowing this thing up. Now, I think I mentioned that the Confederates had already used a torpedo of sorts
Okay.
when they had their own submarine.
Oh wow, I didn't
Yeah,
know
so
that.
submarines been around actually before the Civil War. That somebody, I think, even during the Revolution, maybe or right after,
Oh wow.
some guy. It was basically just a sealed barrel, with a
Huh.
pedals, where yeah. I mean, it was impractical, but I guess it worked. I mean,
It worked enough that they used it and
yeah,
built it.
but
So man, yeah, I'm excited. Will's just. But then you also you talked about the other one.
Alonzo,
And
yeah,
yeah,
Lonnie,
Alonzo. He was in Gettysburg. That was
yeah. Oh, remember he died at 22, so where he would have gone from there, who knows?
yeah.
Um,
And they were both like like doing really well, like in
yeah,
terms of where they were
and
ranked.
there
And
were two other brothers. Now, one was in the cavalry and was out of fighting the Apache Wars at that time, so he
oh,
wasn't
interesting.
directly involved in the Civil War, but he was serving in the army as a cavalryman. And then the fourth one, the oldest of them, he had something like asthma or whatever. I don't know what he had, but something that kept him out of the military. But he worked as a paymaster, which was
Oh,
still a
nice.
military position. So all four of those guys served.
Man, that's yeah. That was a time to be alive too.
Yeah,
I bet. So how'd you come about like writing this? Like how'd you
well, of course, I grew up with William. I was named
hmm
for him, and so I always knew his story and had read about him and heard stories. But Lonnie, I heard about later when there was a bunch of us that said, this guy should get the Medal of Honor. I mean, and
hmm
so I really dove into it when I created a Facebook page, which was basically titled "Give." Alonzo, Lieutenant Alonzo Cushing, the Medal of Honor. Well, once it was done, um, I said, well, look, I want to keep the page going, but he's gotten the medal. I mean, so somebody said, I'll just change the name of it. And I said, okay. So we named it for him. I think it's now called Lieutenant Alonzo H. Cushing Medal of Honor winner. Um, and and then I started posting stuff about William as well. So just generalized stuff about the family. I would like to sing. I mean, I wasn't the biggest mover and shaker in that movement by any stretch, but I heard about it. I saw. Actually, it was Senator Feingold who was one of the few people in D.C. pushing it too, because they were from Delafield, Wisconsin. So I have a feeling it probably started there, where somebody said, "Hey, this guy should get," because there was a time limit, or there is a time limit, so you have to get an exception. But yeah, he finally got it, which he should have gotten, much before, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's his story was incredible as well. And
yeah, oh,
but
very very admired, very respected, and very young. I mean, he was, in fact, besides Custer, who was a year ahead of him at West Point.
oh wow,
Nobody had moved through the ranks as quickly as Lon did, up to that point. And the same thing with William. You look at the guy's a full commander at 32 after getting kicked out.
yeah.
That's not half bad. That
That's
is
how I
one
would
thing
imagine.
that is one thing we do share. I managed to get kicked out of military school myself, so
Oh really?
keeping the legacy going, I suppose. Although
So
nowhere
so,
near him
so
afterwards.
so you're just waiting for the Civil War to come
Yeah,
up, and yeah.
I'll bow out of that one.
Oh, that's yeah. William was really cool.
Yeah.
I man.
But I think the other thing, and this is this has sort of been a labor of love of mine for years. I've been working on these two texts for probably 4 or 5 years easily. Um, Finally got them to a point where, well, um, I don't know if you saw in the index, I think that's where we have the credits, is that the Alonzo piece got third prize in a contest, and the William piece is going to be in an anthology coming out, I think this week actually.
Oh, nice.
Um,
When's that? Oh,
it's
not when. Like what's going like?
it's what's the title of it? GI Days or something like that. It's an anthology of military stories, military history stuff, and so.
Oh, that's cool. And this is like a whole event that goes on. Like
Well,
people.
it was a call for works, and so I sent that in, and they accepted. I said, okay, fine.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, obviously I'm going to give them first publication rights. And that's another reason that Paul at Southern Arizona and I are holding off, is to let them get their book out first, and then we'll come out with ours. So
Okay, gotcha.
technically, yes, it was the first publication was there.
So the Alonzo story, that one already won an award.
That took third place in I forgot the name of the last man, third place in the Colonel Darren L. Wright Memorial Writing Award. And the one on William will appear in GI Days, an anthology of military life.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
those are the two.
Hey, well, I wish you best of luck with
Oh,
the
thanks.
Will story. The Will story
I
is
don't know
gonna
if
kill it.
I think I sent you the proof with the illustrations. Which did you see did that have the visuals?
Uh,
Or
I believe
maybe
it.
not. I
Yeah,
might have just
I think I only got the.
the text.
Yeah, I think I just
Okay,
got
because the
the
book will
text,
have
and then
illustrations in it.
yeah, and I read that, and yeah, I read I read the Alonzo story first, and then
Uh-huh.
I had some other things I needed to get to, and then I
Yeah.
read the uh, William one last night, and I was like,
Oh, okay.
what? I should have read this one.
Quite a character. Uh,
And what's
yeah.
crazy is they were both brothers, and they were kind of like polar opposites.
Very
Almost.
different. Yeah, in fact, that's the cover of it. Says, two brothers, different in personality, but singularly dedicated to the Union. They both fought for this belief, and like I say in the book, is we come from a Puritan background, and if you look at the original abolitionists, they were the Puritans. They were the people that were the religious nuts of the time were the ones that said, yeah, no, slavery is incompatible with the. In
Yeah.
fact, it's interesting because another William O. Cushing, was a Supreme Court justice under Washington, and he was the first judge to make a constitutional argument against slavery. He said that
Oh wow,
that
that's
you
awesome.
can't have this constitution and enslave people. It doesn't work.
Well, that's good.
So
I'm glad
yeah,
we
the
have.
family was very much involved in that, as most. And if you look at Harriet Beecher Stowe, was also very religious.
Yeah.
She came out of that Puritan background as well.
So I'm curious if, like, if you see any of like, I mean, obviously you did some research on, finding these
Oh yeah,
stories. Do you see parts of like Will and Alonzo in you?
I wish.
Well, I mean, you're related to them, aren't you?
Causing the trouble part, I've got that down pretty well. But I mean, could I have been that brave in battle? I never got tested that way. I mean, I served obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
never ran into anything like what those guys went through. Um, so we all like to think we would, but when the rubber meets the road, who knows? You don't know till you get there.
Yeah.
You know?
It's one of those situations
Yeah,
where it's you like to think you'll do it, but then
yeah.
you
Until it
realize,
happens,
wait,
there's no way of knowing. Yeah,
yeah.
but
But man, it's just yeah, it blows. Because I mean, when I was reading it, the one I mean, I have nowhere near as much as crazy as like Will, but like parts of him, I was like, okay, I like some of this like craziness resonates with me. Like I was getting
yeah,
in
yeah.
trouble in
Well,
school,
that's the thing, and
and
he was, I mean, some of the stories that I don't put in there are equally amusing, but it's just they didn't belong there really, like from his childhood and his youth before going into Annapolis and that sort of thing. Although I did put the one in about the Great Wall of China, which I love that one, and
what?
when they broke in, and this was, of course, when the Forbidden City. I'm sorry, the Forbidden City in China. And like I say, that was when it was literally forbidden. I mean, it was sacrilege for any outsider to go there. And so, yeah, what the hell? Let's break in and see how it.
How it goes?
And I can imagine that's what he was probably like. He's probably like, Now, it is funny though. I do have one event that I when I was in high school, I pulled off during one of our military exercise weekends, and kind of like I can imagine him. It's like, I'm tired of sitting around. Let's go do something.
Man, so you have like years and years, like generations of people that have served in the
Well, yeah,
military in your family.
I come from a Navy family. My dad was
Oh,
Navy.
nice.
I don't think his dad was, but there was a lot of others. Yeah, in the Cushing line.
So where's the direct line? The uh
Well, between myself and those two brothers, their fifth great grandfather is my eighth great grandfather. So I
okay.
think it makes us cousins four times removed, or so. I'm not sure what the math is. It's there. I mean, we all
Mm-hmm.
have a common ancestor in the
Oh, that's
line, but
cool.
I'm not the most direct. In fact, the woman who received Alonzo's Medal of Honor lives east of us. And her son, I know, her son lives down in San Diego, and he was also in the Navy as well. And I think he went to Annapolis. I'm trying to remember whether Brooke, which is kind of funny because his name is Brooke Ensign, and I can just imagine once he got promoted, well, calling him Lieutenant Ensign would sound kind of weird. Although Ensign would sound weird too.
Yeah, man, it's so do you have like time, do you spend time researching kind of other family members as well, like in your
Oh yeah,
family
yeah,
line, and
obviously, yeah. Some
is
of the
that
others. In
something you
fact,
enjoy?
one of my cousins just uncovered. Well, not just. It's quite a few months ago, but she sent them to me. these letters that my grandmother, my dad's mom, so it was her grandmother as well. She was a Dutch woman who came to the States, and uncovered a lot of her letters. And it's just so cool reading these letters and seeing the cursive handwriting of those days. It's just, if
No,
you're going
I know.
back now to the late 1800s, early 1900s.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Handwriting back then was
Yeah.
everyone just wrote in cursive, man.
Oh yeah, and everybody wrote. I mean, that's one of the interesting things is you read diary entries of people from the 1800s who didn't get past fifth or sixth grade, and it's like, man, these people are really pretty well educated.
Oh yeah, no, they are.
They had or at the very least, they had a very good command of the language.
No, they did. That's for sure. Yeah, the only reason I know that is when I was little, we would do this thing called like indexing, where you'd read those records and then pretty much
Yeah.
like digitize them, and
Yeah.
you'd try and read them and type them in and send them off into the cloud. You ever done
Yeah.
anything like that?
No, I don't. I got to admit, I mean, I download stuff, but I usually print it out and keep hard copies. I'm real big. I've got file folders. In fact, well, you can't see it, but behind me there's a big filing cabinet, which my wife is sort of forcing me to empty out now because she needs the room for things. I have papers probably from 50, 60 years ago that I refuse to let go of. I'm convinced they're going to become useful at some point.
Well, I mean, the stuff you're printing out, I'm sure are.
Mhm.
And that's the thing with hard copies is they're still like they're useful and you need
Yeah.
them around
Yeah.
because I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, I probably would take the digital copy any day, and I don't
Mhm.
know, a PDF to me just seems easier, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like for some odd reason, like you can't get access to the.
Well, it's funny because last night I was at an open mic and I read some of my poems there, and one of them it discusses reading books on the page as opposed to on a screen. And he said, then this guy goes, hey, I really like that one. I said, yeah, maybe it's my age, but I still prefer holding something in my hand, reading it that way. Then, of course, my big argument against electronic media in writing, especially, is you can't get the writer to sign it. Sorry.
It's true, you can't.
That's always my biggest argument for books.
Yeah, the hard
I can
copy.
get a signed copy.
Yeah, and I have a signed copy of what you sent me. That was
Oh yeah.
thank you so much. I from the one book you sent last time we chat. That was.
What was that? Was that the music?
No, that was the news one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's this, or this.
Yeah, oh my. I'm sure I can see it if I.
Yeah.
I just have so many books I can't see the.
Yeah.
The title.
Well, welcome to the club.
It's so. How many books is this for you then? Now.
Well, this one coming up,
Mm-hmm.
I've got 4 poetry books. I got the collection of short stories. This one that just dropped today is nonfiction. We're listing it as a memoir. I say in the book, I don't know if you'd call this a memoir because I think one of the purposes of memoir is to teach the reader something. So this is more like barstool stories. These are the things that, when people get together, oh, this happened to me or that. These are kind of the ones that I always put out there. These are most of them funny and some of them serious, but most of them is drinking with famous people that you don't even know are famous until afterwards. Stuff like that.
You ever had an instance like that where you? Just...
Oh yeah, and that's in this book. Yeah, I got to have a drink with Captain Kangaroo.
I don't even know who she is. That's.
Oh, you don't know? Okay, Captain Kangaroo. When I was growing up, Captain Kangaroo was the kids show, and I don't know. So this is 19 60, maybe 64, something like that. Well, in 1978, I'm in New York City and waiting for I'm taking my train back out, and I stop in this bar in Penn Station and sit down, and this guy invites me over for a beer, and we start talking and drinking. We're talking about the Yankees, of course, it was baseball season, so we're going into that, and then he says, "Well, I got to catch my train." He takes off, and the bartender comes down and says, "Do you know who that was?" I said, "I said, he looked kind of familiar, but I don't know." It's Captain Kangaroo. I was like, "Oh my god!" I just had to drink the Captain Kangaroo, and he bought. So,
Wow.
I also, the other big one for me is having sharing a scotch with Joseph Heller, the guy who wrote Catch 22. But that was more. I've had a chance. I think just my experiences have given me the opportunity to do that stuff. As a writing major, I worked on festivals and things like that, and you get to meet people that way. I got to meet Ramsey Lewis, the jazz musician, but I did a lot of interviews of these guys. I got to meet him and Louis Bellson, people like, although those were more formal. I'm interviewing them, but it's kind of cool to sit down and meet somebody face to face that you admire their work.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But the Captain Kangaroo story is definitely probably the funniest because
it's your go-to.
I had no idea who it was, and here was a guy when I was a kid. I used to watch his show all the time.
Yeah, I do wonder if I've ever had any of those instances. You never know. They're people too, and they're just going out and they're having a drink, doing whatever.
Well, I think a lot of times, and living now in LA, it's funny. I did get to meet just very briefly Guillermo del Toro, the director, the guy who did Hellboy and all those other movies.
Okay, yeah.
And what it is my wife is a dentist, and so a friend of hers. This guy is like the dentist to the stars. Some of his patients are Tom Cruise and Scarlett Johansson.
Oh wow!
And I think what it is the guy just doesn't care about movies, so he's not impressed. You're my patient. That's all you are. I don't care who you are or what you do. Just pay the bill. That's all I want. But he is apparently very good friends with Guillermo del Toro. And when his son got married, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at him. I told my wife, I said, "Is that Guillermo del Toro?" She goes, "Oh yeah, he's a friend of Bounds." So I was like, "Oh my god." So I just went over the table and I introduced myself. I said, "Look, I just want to shake your hand. I don't want to bother you, but I just want to be able to say I shook your hand." That's all I have. So enjoy the rest of your dinner, and thank you much.
That's cool.
But
that's so cool. So, do these experiences that you have, these moments where you're going about, is that when you're hitting that writer's block or whatever it may be, is that kind of how you go and try and find inspiration as you go out?
I have to admit that this new book, The Time Well Spent, a lot of those stories just came out from my writing group, because I'd be working on something and I'd hit a snag and let me go back and do this, because I always said I was going to write this up, and I'd write it up and present it, and that way I'd sort of get over them. I think one of the things, if you talk about writer's block, the best way to get around it is just do something else. Even if it's revising old stuff that you haven't gotten to in a while, or working on something else, or looking over, a lot of times I'll just look over what notes do I have that I haven't used, and maybe I can think of something. I think probably the advantage I have is I'm not locked into one form of writing. I'm not strictly fiction or poetry. I can do either one or the nonfiction. So it's all right. I can't think of anything for this. Let me put it away. I'll get back to it later. But that's also been sort of the impetus behind most of this. This will be once this Two Brothers book, it's now been changed to Heroic Brothers, by the way. No longer Two Brothers.
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
But once this goes, this will be the fourth book this year that's come out of mine. But here again, you have to figure, well, the writing's been going on for 8, 10, 12 years before this. So it's not like I just whipped up 4 books. I finally got them ready for publication and found a publisher willing to go with them. Now, next year, I'll be a lot of revising. I'm working on the memoir of my late wife. I'm revising a memoir I wrote about my days in the Navy and afterwards on ships, which needs a lot of work. In fact, one of the guys who's helping me, we're going to get together probably in the next week or so, or maybe after the holidays. But the one about my late wife is, I'm still revising it. It's almost done. It'll probably be done, if not by the end of this year, certainly by the start of next, and then I can start revising that. And then there's some other projects. There's a piece of Puerto Rican history that's, to me, is screaming to be written about, and nobody's written
What
about it that I know of. So
what history are we talking?
it's called Grita de Lares, and it was a revolt that the Puerto Ricans staged against the Spanish Empire back in the 1870s. Well, the more I heard about it, the more I realized the parallels between their attempted revolution and our successful revolution were uncanny. I said, this is almost like the American Revolution, the only difference being that ours succeeded and the Puerto Ricans didn't.
Huh.
But
Why?
it's because they had their own Betsy Ross in there, they had their own Thomas. I mean, I'm looking at these people, I'm like, well, this could have been this guy, this could have been Adams.
Huh.
And it's something that even there's a good number of Puerto Ricans aren't even aware of this piece of history to any
What?
great degree. Uh, so that's
That's
something I want to work on. I'm also like, I want to start getting together. There's a here again I got this from my wife. There's a Peruvian event in 1970 71 uh, that's very intense, where this one little town suffered a tsunami, an earthquake, and a mountain slide. I mean, all in like a 36-hour period. They just got
what?
hammered with every natural disaster you could think of, and it just buried the town. And the Peruvian government decided, no, we're not going to rebuild it. We're going to keep it the way it is. That's going to be the memorial to these people. And
Huh.
very few survivors. Well, one of the survivors was one of her cousins, who was about 7 or 8 at the time. So I want to
Oh,
write
so this
that
is
up.
like
Mm-hmm.
this is pretty like not recent, but
Yeah, well, 71, 72. So,
wow.
uh,
What?
but,
That just I'm
well,
interested.
here
I
again,
haven't
it's
even heard
South
about that.
America.
I
I
feel like that
mean,
would be like mainstream. Like, yeah, there's this town that just got.
yeah, it's just complete. The only thing that was left standing above ground was the cross, I think, on the church.
Oh,
And so they basically said, all right, that's going to be the memorial. We're going to,
that's a good
we're not going to
memorial.
rebuild or anything like that. And it was just a little farming town that had very few people lived there, but some of them survived. And
Man,
so,
imagine
yeah,
telling
I'm
that.
writing that up as a creative nonfiction. Obviously, I'm going to fictionalize a lot of it because I can only guess. But I want to get with her cousin, say, all right, what do you remember? I mean, like, what did you smell? What did you hear? What was it like going through that? Yeah, she was younger, she was a kid, but you go through something like that, it's going to stay with you, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm just even trying. Like, imagine, like, obviously, like a tsunami or something like that would be
Yeah,
enough to be like, oh my. Then
and
all of a
then
sudden the ground starts shaking. You're like,
this is
wait,
like
wait a minute.
a hat trick from God.
Exactly.
But so that's a project I want to take over, and so that those will be the upcoming things I do. And then, of course, I'm still writing the poetry and getting involved in that.
Hmm.
I probably won't worry about putting another book together for some time, though. And
Yeah. You
I'm
you
sure.
already have enough. And I want to ask this before we get too down this rabbit hole, but with the Puerto Rican story, why did why did the U.S. succeed and why did the Puerto Rican one fail?
That sort of give away the whole point of the
Oh,
thing.
that's fair. That's fair.
But basically, the Spanish found out about it. It was a screw up in intelligence. The Spanish troops discovered
Um,
what was going on, and they just kept it quiet and let it happen, and then they were ready to go. They basically ambushed them
oh man.
because they knew what was going to happen, when it was going to happen, all that stuff. So
That's what's crazy to think about as well. Is I mean, obviously, when you read books about even just the American Revolution, to us, it's like, oh yeah, this just happened. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
but did it just happen? Like they had to, they put some planning behind it, and
I mean, you look at I mean, Benedict Arnold, who's now the name has become synonymous with betrayal and all that stuff. But he was probably thinking, we're getting our butts kicked here, man. I better, save mine while I can. So, from his point of view, it was the smartest move to make. As it turned out, no, it didn't pan out his way. But
yeah,
and there were a lot. Yeah, that's one of the things that the American Revolution was not fully backed by any stretch by the population. There were a lot of people like, no, no, let's not make waves. We just keep petitioning.
yeah, no,
That's why we remember people like Patrick Henry, who I think was probably one of the great personalities of that period. John Adams, another one, and Sam Adams. I mean, Sam Adams, worked behind the scenes mostly, but he was, he did pamphlets and where John Adams was out making speeches and stuff. Sam
yeah,
Adams sort of stayed in the background, but yeah, he was a pretty
yeah.
revolutionary guy.
Wasn't Sam Adams also pretty I don't know what the right word is, but like reckless at times too, or
I think he had some. Yeah, I just read something on him not long ago. Yeah, he had some near misses. He could have gotten in some real trouble.
yeah.
But
Like, oh, I'm trying to remember. There was it's slipping my mind, but
that's why I don't know if you ever saw that series, The Sons of Liberty.
I have not.
It's a DVD collection. I think it was out on the History Channel or something. But it's a very interesting look at how the revolution came about and how it was organized. And I think they even had one chapter that was on the spies, colonial spies, which is,
Yeah, I,
here again, that always becomes a big part of any war.
yeah, no, and I on that there is actually a show out there if you're ever interested. It's called like Turning Point.
Okay.
I want to make sure that's right, but I believe it's on Netflix. I
Oh, okay.
don't quote me on that, but it's about pretty much the spy like network that Washington
Oh,
set
okay.
up.
Yeah. And one of the things Washington did that was smart was he didn't keep stuff on paper. He
Yeah,
was smart enough to keep all the information in his head, and so there was never any written evidence that this was going on. Of course, the downside of that is if you get killed, you're the only one who knows.
yeah. That I'm trying to. Yeah, no, that actually is what. I mean, obviously they like Hollywoodize it and all that, but
Yeah.
I mean there is a lot of like actual like, hey, this actually happened
Yeah.
in it, and I was
Well,
like,
that's what I
what?
find. Yeah, it's funny with me. Well, of course, I think I mentioned this to you before that I began as a history major. I just veered off into writing
Oh yeah,
by accident, and I love history. And I've always insisted because I like to tell my students. I say, how many of you don't like history? And a lot of them will raise their hand. Is it because it's boring? Yeah, history is boring. I said, no, history is not boring. Now, history teachers can be incredibly boring, but
it's
don't
true.
blame the subject matter, you know, for their bad delivery. Uh, and I was lucky enough that I only had one bad history teacher, my all through high school, college, whatever. And by the time I got to that person, I was old enough to realize, all right, I just need to get through this semester,
Yeah,
that I don't need to deal with this guy anymore. Uh,
I think when it comes to history, sometimes those individual stories actually because it's easier to kind of resonate. I don't know. This is just me personally, but like when you hear a story about someone they're telling about whoever in history, you kind of can like stop and think, okay, like what would I do if I was in his position, or what would right? Like you kind of it allows your imagination to kind of go wild. Whereas like what you're talking about with the boring history teachers, sometimes they just say, "Oh yeah, and then this happened,
then this happened, and that
and then
happened.
this happened," and
And yeah, and you got to find those kernels in there, I think, and they're always there. One of the reasons I loved when Clint Eastwood came out with he did Flags of Our Fathers, and then he did the bookend with the Letters of Iwo Jima, which I thought Letters was a far better movie. mostly because it's from the point of view of that one private. You're not getting the guy who's the general. I mean, the general's there, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
part of the story, but the point of view is the grunt who's doing the work. And it's the same thing with well, and this is one of my big complaints on the when Netflix came out with their All Quiet on the Western Front. I was like, look, it's a good movie and it's an interesting story, but it's not All Quiet on the Western Front. If you read the novel, it's about the guys in the trenches. It's about the ground pounders. It's not about, which I don't know if you saw that Netflix version.
I didn't watch
I
that one.
don't. I go see the original, or there's a 1979 version that's not too bad either. The big thing on this one was, oh, they did it in German, so it was true to the language. Yeah, but it wasn't true to the book. So that was my big problem with it. I said, and not that it wasn't. It was a fairly decent story, but it was not. What's his name? Who wrote the book? It was not his book by any stretch. Uh,
Yeah.
because it showed the politicians and the diplomats and the generals, and of course they changed the ending completely. But yeah, I think that what made All Quiet on the Western Front such a powerful book, right? Like Johnny Got His Gun. I don't know if you know that book, Dalton
Mm-mm.
Trumbull's book. Both World War One books, but they're about the lower level guys. The
Yeah.
ones that aren't
Mm-hmm.
conducting the battles and planning everything. They're the ones fighting.
That's so. I think that right there. I just have the thought that I think that's what differentiates movies and writing. Writing allows you to get into the thoughts, and
Yeah,
there's no constraints on how uh, in
yeah,
depth you want to go. Whereas movies, you can't really read their thoughts. You just kind of have to.
yeah,
You almost have to show what they're thinking,
yeah.
and that's very hard to do.
But and here again, here's another good example. You look at Valkyrie, and I'm not saying it's not a good movie. I thought it was fine, but it's from the point of view of what was his name, von Stauffenberg, or whatever the German general was, who that Tom Cruise played,
Oh, okay.
who was an interesting character. And I thought, yeah, it was. But there's a book by a German writer, Hans Helmut Kirst, wrote a book called Soldiers Revolt, and it was about the assassination attempt. But it's seen from the point of view of the lower level people, the ones who, you know,
Mm-hmm.
smuggled in the explosive, designed the bomb and all this other stuff. And so I found it a completely, of course, I think he's a good novelist anyway. He wrote a lot about World War II, about the German army and that sort of thing. Uh,
Yeah.
but
It's it
yeah, but
reminds me.
Soldier of Revolt, I thought was a tremendous book. I'm reading this, and this is fascinating because, I heard about the attempt and who was involved. I mean, Rommel was supposedly even involved, although they never technically convicted him of anything. Uh,
Yeah. Man, I mean, both world wars are just. I mean, right? Millions of people are involved in them. I mean, there's so many
yeah.
stories to just. I mean, that's why I kind of like them. Is there's just so many.
Well, I'm tempted to. I would like to write something. It would probably be. I think it would be a poem, but I don't know if you heard about this woman who died either the beginning of this year or last year or later on. But she was a Dutch woman, but during the war, she had worked for the Dutch resistance. And she was
Huh.
like 15, 16 years old. I was like, this is such a. When I was reading her story, she would basically seduce German soldiers to come
What?
into the woods, and then she'd kill them. This is a 15-year-old girl who's
What? Oh,
doing,
wow.
and she would transport information back and forth because here's this little 15-year-old girl on a bicycle with a basket who's going to bother her. Well, she's got all these communicators. That's really ballsy, man.
That is, man. Especially if you. I mean, I don't
When
know.
I was reading her story, I was like, my God, this is incredible. And apparently her older sister helped her along too. They both. But just the thought of, I mean, to me, it's like, well, Yeah, the fact that they were Nazis and working for the Nazis is one reason. But the fact that some 20-year-old guy would go after a 15-year-old girl, but there's reason enough to waste him as far as I'm concerned. It's like,
Man,
I'm
I
sort of
gotta,
hardcore on that stuff.
yeah,
I don't have many morals, but I do have a couple with it.
yeah,
I kind of hold to. And that's one that's like, yeah, you don't do that.
yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing about war is everyone has to pretty much they have to draw their line in the sand and say,
Yeah,
I will
yeah,
not cross
and
this.
decide where they're going to go. Yeah, and that's. I mean, you look at Leon Uris's novels, which deal a lot with World War II, and of course with Israel as well. Uh, Fascinating stuff. And here, I've always liked his stuff because he really does his homework. Uh, Kind of like, Crichton's another one like that. I mean, not that he writes about military stuff, but Crichton tends to write about science and medicine and that kind of thing. But you come away knowing some things that you didn't know about that field afterwards. And I think that's what I like about reading their stuff. And that's sort of what I'm hoping this will do too. This particular Brothers book. Show people that no history and all right, one story is involved strictly with a 5-hour period on one day, whereas the other one covers from Annapolis up until his death, so it covers a multi-year period. But yeah, it's some interesting characters, interesting personalities.
Yeah, and it shows, right, that
Yeah.
that yeah, that everyone has their own story and everyone's
Yeah.
living their own lives.
Well, it's funny because that's one of the things I've always said when I talk about literature to my classes. Like, you always hear people say, well, somebody should write a story about my life. It would be an interesting book or movie, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, well, everybody's life is an interesting story. It's just that not everybody's an interesting storyteller. That's the difference. And that's the trick. You got to be able to make it worth hanging with for the reader.
Yeah, and I mean that right there is. I think everyone's capable of being a good storyteller. You just have to find what your medium is.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I would say, my method of storytelling, I'm really good at telling stories. Just
Yeah.
when I'm sitting down with someone, like, all right,
yeah,
listen here,
yeah,
and I'll tell a story just
yeah,
verbally. Whereas other people, it might be better to just write stuff down. And you're
yeah,
reading it, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is incredible, man.
yeah.
And then trying to think another way that record stories. But moral of the story is like,
Yeah, and that's which, by the way, is one of the reasons I am really big on writing groups because they let you know, okay, I have this story. It's very interesting. Every time I tell it, people are entertained. Now let me write it down, but by exposing it to some of the other writers and letting them go, well, you know what? I need this. I need that. You didn't give me enough here. You can start, and that's one of the reasons. I mean, I always find it amusing when students, oh, you belong to writing groups. Hell yeah. I mean, hey, Otani gets coached. You always need that outside influence to look at you and say, hey, this is what you need to work on.
It's important.
Yeah.
I agree. Don't shy away from not necessarily criticism, but like in a way, like have people review your
of
work.
Course, you take it with whatever grain of salt is applicable to the situation. I'm like, there are some people when I hear them complain, I go, okay, I trust this person. And there's others like, well, I've seen your stuff too.
Well, you have to remember some people just complain just to complain.
Yeah,
can't really do much about that.
But that was, I mean, when I got to Goddard, and not to make this an advertising for Goddard, but I think that was the biggest thing to me was when we were workshopping our work and these people criticized, I was like, yeah, you're right. Whereas I think back to when I was an undergrad and people, well, I don't know if I like this. Well, I was like, okay, fine. You don't like it, but, I like it. I'm going to keep it in there. Or, if it's good advice, yeah, you take it. But, there were a lot of times. Now, like I say, once I got into that MFA work and listening to the work of these other people and knowing their resumes, I'm like, yeah, I better listen to these guys. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, that's cool that
Yeah.
you do that and all that.
Well, in
Well,
fact,
man,
I've always, whenever I talk to somebody about the school and you know, they might be coming in or they might be going there and starting up, I say, look, the one fear you got to get over, you will have it. To me, it's inevitable. You're going to get there for your first week or so, and you're going to think to yourself, you know what? I'm a fake. I shouldn't even be here. They're going to find out about me before long. And I think every student there goes through it because you get exposed to this writing that's so good that you start
mm,
questioning whether you're qualified. Look, you are qualified. You got into the place. Uh,
yes.
you just have to have the confidence that you learn.
And you just, yeah, got to continue as
Yeah,
well, like practicing and
but I remember I was there 3 days, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm a fraud, man. These guys
yeah.
all know what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing here, but
No, I get that. No, I do. It's not even writing. It's other
oh
things
yeah,
that I'll
oh,
toy
I'm
around
sure
with.
the
I'll be like,
visual artists go through the same thing, and the theater people go through the same thing.
yeah, it's kind of like that. Why? Not even like the uh why me? It's just, man, am I even like allowed to
How
do
did I
this?
get there? Somebody was asleep at the switch.
Like people are trusting me to do this. Like you're all right. Like I guess I'm
Well, it
coming
was
up.
funny because one of the stories I love telling about my second semester there was a woman who came in. It was her first semester, and we got along very well. It turns out she sailed, I sailed. You know, we both had some common interests, and so we hung out together. And there were a lot of times, you know, students would give readings, and you know, well, this one guy read something that was just horrible. It was just really bad. Uh, I mean, not just from the content, but the delivery and just the structure and everything. I mean, not just that I didn't care for the story, which I didn't, but it was not very well structured. There were flaws in the plot and all kinds of things. And the next day at breakfast, she's going, "Well, you know, I keep hearing how good the school is, but you know, that last night, you know, doesn't give me much faith." I said, "Well, look, think of it this way." I said, first of all, let's give the guy a break. You know, maybe he had a bad day. He thought it was good. My hope is that while he was reading it, he was thinking to himself, "Oh my God, this is horrible. I got to work on it." But who knows? But you know, maybe he's happy with it. Possibly his samples were so good he got in. Maybe he shouldn't be here. But I said, think of it this way: what do you remember from an undergrad? You know, when you were an undergrad and you were doing this stuff, what do you remember? You remember the stuff that was very good. Why? Because it was very rare. What are you going to remember here? The stuff that was very bad. Why? Because it was very rare. So you're in among a group of very good writers here, and so what's going to stand out is the unusual, and that was unusual. You know, normally you're used to, you get spoiled. You think,
Yeah.
hey, everybody's, you know,
Huh.
on this high level. And no, maybe they're not.
Interesting.
So yeah,
Wow. Yeah. I didn't even think about it like that. That almost rarity. Like just
yeah. What stands out in your life is the
yeah.
stuff that's weird, that's
It's
unusual,
weird.
and in that scenario, I said, yeah, what stood out was the bad writing, not the, which only here again to me further attests to the quality of what was going on here. And it's the same this writing group I'm with now. I'm very happy with. I mean, we all work in different areas. I mean, one woman is doing like a fantasy novel, which is that's not my market. In fact, I said, look, I don't know how to really criticize the work from a structural point of view. So my best contribution to you is fixing the grammatical errors, letting you know when you're repeating yourself, stuff like that. That's the best. I don't read these types of books. I don't know what's the formula, so I can't help you there. But yeah, there's a lot of YA people in there. Uh, there's one guy who writes horror stories, and he writes some really great horror. That's not my bag. I don't read a lot of that. I mean, not that I don't read it
It
at all, but it's not my preference.
it's art.
So
Every,
yeah,
it,
and
it's your
so
opportunity to express what's on your mind.
yeah. But I think what I like is that these folks are all, to me, doing pretty well in whatever field of writing they've chosen. So when they give me feedback and say, "Look, I, you know, I thought you acted like kind of a schmuck here. You might want to change that." and, and sometimes I go, "Well, yeah, but that's the point. I'm trying to show that I'm not this perfect guy. That I can screw up just as badly as anybody else." But yeah, maybe I'll tone it down or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why I think critique on that stuff is very important.
it is. It is. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I told you this story last time we met, but when I started writing poetry, I used to go to this bar, and this is in Jacksonville. I went there all the time, so I got to know everybody there. And one night I'm there, and the bartender goes, "Oh, you got to meet this guy. He writes poetry too. You'll like him." Which was kind of funny because I've always said, well, just because we share one common experience doesn't mean I don't like you. So there's no guarantee of that. But yeah, what I mean,
And there's different types of poetry too, right? Like,
yeah. But the point is, it doesn't mean our personalities are going to mesh. Maybe we can admire each other as writers, but it doesn't mean I want to go hang out with you all the time. But I asked the guy, well, one of the first things I asked him, "Oh, have you ever been published?" And he said, "Well, I sent a poem to the Atlantic Monthly, and they wanted to change one of the lines in the poem, so I refused to let them print it." And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, my BS detector is going off big time. I'm thinking, if Atlantic Monthly wants to take one of my pieces, they can make whatever changes they want. Just to have that on my resume is going to be great.
yeah.
So I'm thinking, yeah, I'm having a problem believing this. I mean, I can write to the Atlantic Monthly and get rejected. So, I applied, but they didn't publish my stuff. But then later on, I said, "Well, what's your process of writing?" He goes, "Oh, well, I write a poem and it just comes out the way I want it." And right there, I was like, "Oh, get out of here, man." There's only two explanations for that. You either have the lowest standards in the world or you're full of it. That's
Especially with writing, like, I mean, we just were talking about that. It's constantly evolving, and hopefully
yeah,
you're getting
oh,
better.
it's working.
Like,
And I'm not saying I haven't had the occasional piece that came out pretty much the way I want. Not that it didn't go through no changes, but very little. Well, like one of them I use as an example is I wrote a paper on on the novel Uncle Tom's Cabin. And when I wrote the first draft was pretty much it. I mean, I had to go through and fix some stuff up. But I always told people, I said, yeah, but remember, by this time, I'm 40 years old. Now, this was an argument I had been having about this novel with people for at least the last 15 years. So when I say the first draft came out very well, yeah, it was the first written draft. But I've been doing it orally for all these years and sort of building it up in my head so that when it came to writing it down, I pretty much knew how the argument was organized. Then it was just a matter of pulling the examples to prove my point. So yeah, it's tough to say that, well, yeah, that came out just right the first time. Well, it wasn't the first time. It was the first time on the page.
I like that I mean, this is just a little shift gears here, but that you pretty much talked about your argument with other people, then went and wrote it down. Because I find that actually, writing stuff down when I like, let's say I have a disagreement with someone, or even just like a bad day, right? And you start writing just everything down.
Yeah.
You find that all of a sudden, one, you're like, okay, like I should have said it this way, and it probably would have made sense to this person. Or you look at it and are like, oh man, I sound like an idiot.
Well, yeah, I think that's the nice thing. But in this scenario, it was more just I'd been having this argument for years, and then I got into a class where I had an opportunity to. There was a paper topic. I said, "Oh, I know what I'm going to do because this is something that's been of personal interest in me for years." And I've been making the argument on this for years, and so now I got an opportunity to set it on paper. But yeah, I have had chances. Like there was something I wrote about defending the English language that I never even made the argument with the guy. I was sitting there, and this guy said something about English. And I was like, you know what? But I'm not going to. We're at a party. It's a social event. I'm not going to get into a fight with a guy on it. But I immediately, like the next day, just wrote down everything I would have said had I engaged with him. And I added to it over the years and stuff. So I came up with this. Now it starts with his basic premise, but the whole argument. Here's why I find him wrong. That I think his position is off base. And it's the same thing where I've written a piece about my generation, and basically it comes off of a student once said something about, well, it's you old people who screwed everything up. And I was like, well, yeah, but wait a minute. Let's look at some of the stuff we have done. I mean, I'm not saying we haven't screwed up, but you're sort of not giving us credit for some things that you should.
Exactly. No,
So I wrote this thing out as a way of saying, well, we did this, we did that. I'm not saying I did it personally, but people of my age and my age group have done this over the years. It's pretty good stuff.
Yeah. But, and I mean, at the end of the day, every generation's gonna.
Well, yeah.
They're gonna have things they did wrong and things they did right.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's. Well, I think I don't know if I told. I actually wrote this up as a poem, but it's the poem is titled "The Answer," and it's based on old people always look at young people and say, what a bunch of idiots. And young people are always looking at old people, these guys are past their prime, they don't know what they're doing. I say, well, really what causes that animosity is older people are looking at younger people going, was I really that stupid? And of course, unfortunately, the answer is, yeah, you were. And then the young people looking at old people going, God, am I really going to turn into that? And, well, yeah, you are. He can break it to you. But the answer to both problems is, yep, that's it.
Yeah. You can only embrace it and just do it
you're
the best you
can. You're going to get old and
can.
flabby and all that other stuff. And, I did a lot of dumb crap when I was a kid. So I got to give you the leeway a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
man. We honestly could go on for hours. But I'm gonna at least wrap up the show here. If people wanna, your book you just said you released.
So this is the one that just came out, called Time Well Spent. And this is just a collection of short narrative pieces. So this one just dropped today. Now
nice.
The other one is this. Is this? Okay, stop sharing. Let me go to this. The one I'm really interested in, sort of getting people interested in, I hope, and that's this one. That's coming up. Okay, yeah. That's the one I'm really pumped about. I'm really proud of this book. I think it's a very nice work, and I hope people will enjoy it.
I mean, I've read it, so well, at least parts of it, and I'm just saying, like, I mean, Alonzo's cool, and I think his story's cool, but Williams just blew my mind.
Now you're seeing them for the first time. So the one on the left is Alonzo, the one on the right obviously is William, yeah, like I say, they're very different personalities, but very similar in their devotion to what was going on. And I think that was an interesting thing. And they were very inseparable as kids and even as adults later on, even though one went to West Point, the other went to Annapolis.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Bill, for coming.
Yeah, well, thanks for giving me another chance to shout out. And hopefully, and I think you have my email address, so anybody who's interested in getting signed copies, I'll make a deal. In fact, the publisher and I are talking now about doing something like a two-for deal, because I've got the book of poetry, I got the new one that just came out, and then this one. And so if people wanted to buy two of them, we'll work out some sort of deal.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, we can throw that in the link in the
Sounds great.
description. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. All right, everyone, as you can tell, that is Bill Cushing. He's a very intelligent person, has great things to share. I challenge you guys, if anything spoke to you guys today, to reach out to him and to check out his books. We talked a little bit about the story of two brothers that actually are in his family tree and he's related to. And if you're kind of fascinated by that story, I would challenge you guys to look into it. He left you guys their links and covers for you guys to learn more. Stay tuned till next week. We have a great guest lined up for you guys. See you guys next week, and let's get after it.
Hey everyone, if you liked this episode and would like to hear more, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button. We release a new episode every Wednesday for you guys to listen to. Thank you guys so much for the support that you give. We could not have done this without you guys. If you would like to be a potential guest on the show, check out intelligentconvos.com and fill out the form there. Thank you guys again, and let's get after it.